Hi.
Greetings, everybody. We're in the final segment of our project. It's taken 6 years and about 500 videos. 2/3 of those are the In Search of Christian Freedom book, which we did in the middle. So I'll explain more about that at the end. That we started about halfway through this book because we were talking about 1975. That's 6 years ago. So we worked through the rest of this book. Then we started In Search of Christian Freedom when we found out
that it was hard to get.
You'd have to spend $400 or $500 to get one. So we thought we'll do that one. And then we thought when we finished that project about 3 years ago that we would finish this one.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So
it was because you didn't think you were going to read the whole book. You just started with some points you wanted to make at the latter part of the book.
That's right, about how Ray came out of the Watchtower. That seemed to me to be the focus back 6 years ago. But now we realized that we should do justice to it, which is to fill in the rest of Ray's argument. So here we go. This is the last that we're going to record anyway.
Then we'll link you to the old ones.
Yeah, we'll link you to the old ones, and that'll be more complicated than usual to find them if you try to do it through the playlist, because they won't be in chronological order. Okay, here we go. Now he's talking about the doubling down after 1921, the latest date disappointment, the doubling down between 22 and 25 as to the fact that chronology is totally correct. Now he goes to another argument they used in those days, 1922 Watchtower, July 15th, 1922 Watchtower. Ray says parallelisms were relied upon heavily as evidence of the divine origin of the date system advanced. Parallel periods of 1,845 years and of 2,520 years being applied to a considerable number of dates and events in history. Of this system of using parallelisms, the article in this issue of the Watchtower stated, again July 15, 1922, quote, "Parallelisms of this nature are proof of divine origin of present truth chronology, because they show foreknowledge. In the instance cited, the division of Israel and that of Christendom, 2,520 years apart, are evidence that when the first division was permitted, the latter one was foreknown. This is true because of the relationship between the two events as regards both time and nature. When it is found that there is a series or system of parallel dates, composed of pairs of dates, 2,520 years apart, the foreknowledge becomes obvious. It would be absurd to claim that the relationship discovered was not the result of divine arrangement. God alone has such foreknowledge, and this proves that he so overruled times and events that they should be knit together into a beautiful and harmonious whole, too sublime to be the result of chance or of human invention." And now Ray comments on that.
Okay. Though described as so obviously the product of divine foreknowledge that to deny their reliability and significance would be absurd, the whole system of using parallelisms has since been discarded by the organization. All of this material, hammering away at any tendency to question the time prophecies that form such a vital part of the doctrinal structure of the organization, seems to have been preparing the Watchtower readers for a coming event. It apparently was designed to build up a certain spirit and attitude before the holding of that year's convention in Cedar Point, Ohio, regularly referred to as a major milestone in the organization's history. That 1922 convention had as its principal talk a discussion that built on the foundation already laid by the earlier Watchtower articles. Today, the organization quotes a small portion of that talk in support of 1914. It ignores the fact that 1799 and 1874 figured with equal strength in the argument advanced, and in the conclusion, the audience was then called upon to reach, it seemed in the following portions published, as seen in the following portions published in the November 1st, 1922 Watchtower. Quote, Bible prophecy shows that the Lord was due to appear for the second time in the year 1874. Fulfilled prophecy shows beyond a doubt that he did appear in 1874. Fulfilled prophecy is otherwise designated the physical facts, and these facts are indisputable. Okay, no wonder I shake my head and can't read it. Okay, all true watchers are familiar with these facts, as set forth in the scriptures and explained in the interpretation by the Lord's special servant. Jesus himself declared that in the time of his presence he would conduct a harvest of his people, during which he would gather unto himself the true and loyal ones. For some years this work has been in operation and is nearing completion. He states that during his presence he would have one who would fill the office of a faithful and wise servant, through whom the Lord would bring to his people meat in due season. All the facts show that those prophecies have been fulfilled.
What can we say? They've now implicated the Lord Jesus Christ in these so-called facts, which are actually imagination. And nowadays, you've abandoned all of this except the date 1914, which you've redefined.
Yeah.
They go on, the day of preparation, subhead, why has the king come? To set up his kingdom and reign as king. But he had a work to do before his reign began, and that is a preparatory work. Since there are to be associated with him in his reign, his body members, these must be gathered together and prepared for the beginning of the reign. The Gentile times, under the supervision of the God of this world, ended August 1st, 1914. That's not what they teach nowadays, is it?
Yeah.
It's October is the date of the end of the Gentile times. Before that date, it would not have been consistent for the Lord, the King of glory, to take unto himself his great power and reign. Since he has been present from 1874, it follows from the facts, as we now see them, that the period from 1874 to 1914 is the day of preparation. This in no wise militates against the thought that the time of the end is from 1799 until 1914. The period from 1799 to 1874 could not be said to be a day of preparation, but a day of increasing light. It is not reasonable to think that the king began to make preparations until he was present. For 6,000 years, God has been preparing for this kingdom. For 1,900 years, he has been gathering out the kingdom class. That's a phrase, of course, that's not in the Bible, the kingdom class, from amongst men. Since 1874, the King of glory has been present. And during that time, he has conducted a harvest and has gathered unto himself the temple class. Since 1914, the King of glory has taken his power and reigns. Oh, that's a change. Notice it's this change of the significance of 1874 and moved now to 1914. Also built into this, not dealt with here, is the idea that the millennium had started in 1872 or 73. That seems to have been moved to 74 here, but it would move again, of course, in the 1940s. So the millennium is already here. That's why we're in the time of the end, which he admits expired actually in 1914. So we're on borrowed time. In 1922, of course. He has cleansed the lips, get this, he has cleansed the lips of the temple class and sends them forth with the message. So they are now being brought in as cohorts in spreading this false message worldwide. This is 1922, Cedar Point.
And how did he cleanse them, since they're still uttering false prophecies?
The importance of the message of the kingdom cannot be overstated. It is the message of all messages. It is the message of the hour. It is incumbent upon those who are the Lord's to declare it. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. The king reigns. In other words, he's here already. Satan's empire is falling. Millions now living will never die. All those things are falsified by their own history.
And this is
And you were
what
supposed to preach it.
they've been cleansed to say.
Yeah.
Another false prophecy.
They're, of course, alluding to the Isaiah 6 passage where Isaiah's lips are cleansed before he goes out. He says, "Here I am, send me." But before he goes, his lips are cleansed.
Yeah.
This is not you.
Yeah.
And then this part, this I couldn't help but relate to this. Do you believe it? Rutherford says, do you believe that the King of Glory is present and has been since 1874? Do you believe that during that time he has conducted his harvest work? Do you believe that he has had during that time a faithful and wise servant through whom he directed his work, the feeding of the household of faith? Do you believe that the Lord is now in his temple, judging the nations of earth? Do you believe that the King of Glory has begun his reign? I couldn't help but think back to the mid-70s when one of our elders, an elder I loved, by the way, but I couldn't help but kind of chuckle, and some of us would sit together and chuckle when he did it. That nice elder that I remember
Spoke that way.
spoke exactly this way. Do you believe it, brothers? He would say. Do you believe? And then he would go through, do you believe that the king's been on the throne since 1914? And that within he would go on with the current eschatology.
Yeah. So it is the way the literature writes it. And so he spoke it that way. Yeah. So continuing still the quote. Then back to the field, O ye sons of the Most High God. Gird on your armor. Be sober. Be vigilant. Be active. Be brave. Be faithful and true witnesses for the Lord. Go forward in the fight until every vestige of Babylon lies desolate. Herald the message far and wide. The world must know that Jehovah is God and that Jesus Christ is King of kings and Lord of lords. This is the day of all days. Behold, the King reigns. You are his publicity agents. Therefore, advertise, advertise, advertise. The King and his kingdom. That's the end of the quote. That's the part I remember, that last paragraph.
That's the part they quote today in the Proclaimer's book, etc.
Yeah. So they leave out all the dates that are inconvenient. Okay, Ray finishes off by saying here, despite the fierce call for loyalty to Pastor Russell's teachings and chronology, this talk is remarkable in that it reveals the first sign of a gradual edging away from those very teachings. In the time is at hand, Russell had taught that, and here's a quote from The Time is at Hand, 1874 being the parallel of his, Christ's, assuming power and authority in the type, clearly marks the time for the actual assuming of power as King of Kings by our present spiritual, invisible Lord, the time of his taking to himself his great power to reign. That's the end of that quote. By Rutherford's talk at Cedar Point, these acts, invisible acts, were moved up from 1878 to 1914, a date that had proved empty of all the things forecast and hoped for. It was the start of what would later become an almost wholesale transferal of events assigned to pre-1914 dates up to 1914 and post-1914 dates. So in other words, they've just moved everything from leading up to 1914 to 1914 and beyond.
To give themselves an extra 40 years, basically. Yeah. A generation, which is where they get the generation idea. Millions now living will never die.
Right.
This generation, not the last one, the next one.
Yeah.
And now we're 5 generations beyond the original, which was, of course, 1874 to 1881. So that's it. The project is complete. As I said at the beginning, though, follow the links on the video. So the link we'll put on this one is the video we've recorded
years ago,
but all of the videos from now on were recorded years ago. But if you follow the links, you should be able to. But most playlists aren't organized that way. They're organized chronologically, so you can do it safely.
Yeah.
So if you just follow the links at the end of every one of the videos, you should be fine.
Yeah. If we ever figure out how to do it properly, we will.
Rejig it, you mean? Rejig the plate.
Rejig
Yeah.
it,
It's
yeah.
going to take a while though, at the present pace.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks for joining us, by the way, on this project that took only 6 years.